Medium format photography. If you dabbled some time in film photography, you surely heard about this film format. But what does it actually mean for you as a photographer? And more importantly, how do you even start? Today, we're going to have a look at the Mamiya 645-1000S, a camera that most people who are getting into medium format photography will most likely come across. The 645 format is the perfect entry for bigger sized film negative. With a modular design and sharp lens selection, it's clear why it ranks so high in search trends. But here's the thing, it can feel a bit overwhelming at first. Loading medium format film, figuring out the manual controls, nailing the focus, I get it, it's a lot. That's exactly why you're here. In this video I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about the Mamiya 645, especially the 1000S model. From loading the first roll of film to taking your first shot. I'll break it all down step by step. And along the way, I'll share some tips that not only make the camera easier to use, but also help you capture stunning photos right out of the gate. So let's get started. But first, let's talk about what makes the Mamiya 645-1000S so special. At its core, this camera is all about balance. It gives you the incredible detail and depth of a medium format photography without the bulk of a larger system like a 6x7. For example, the Mamiya RB67 is a ginormous camera, but its main use case is in a studio environment. Let's start with the format. The 645 negative is what sets this camera apart. It's larger than 35mm, which means you get more detail, smoother tonal transitions, and a beautiful medium format look. And here's a bonus, you get 15 shots per roll. And that's a lot more flexible compared to larger formats like a 6x7, which gives you only about 10 shots. Also, more frames means more opportunities to experiment. And then there's the lens. The Mamiya Sekor lenses are legendary for a reason. They're sharp, contrasty, and built like a tank. Whether you're shooting portraits, landscapes, or still life, these lenses deliver stunning results every time. Now let's talk about the modular design. This camera is like a Lego set for photographers. You can swap out viewfinder, grips and customize it for your shooting style. Want a waist level viewfinder for low angles? Done. Prefer a prism viewfinder with a built-in light meter? No problem. This flexibility makes the Mamiya 645-1000S incredibly versatile. And finally, the build quality. This camera is solid. It's heavy, yes, but in a reassuring way. It feels way better than its younger brother, the Mamiya 645 Super, which is mostly plastic on the outside. But all these features mean nothing if you don't know how to use them. So let's dive into getting this camera ready to shoot. Alright, let's get practical. Start by checking your batteries. This camera works with either a silver oxide battery or alkaline battery, which is probably easier to find. To check your battery, press the battery check button located above the film advanced knob. The battery check lamp should light up. If the lamp doesn't turn on, it's time to replace your battery. And here's a pro tip, if your battery dies completely, the shutter might stay open. To close it, press and hold the battery check button all the way down. This will force the shutter to close. After you check the battery and you made sure you have a functioning camera, let's load the camera with some film. Start by opening the back of the camera. Take out the roll film insert. On the roll film insert, you see two parts. One for the fresh roll of film and the other one for the take-up spool. Take your roll of 120 film and place it in the chamber on the top. Pull the leader across. Behind and thread it into the slot on the take-up spool. Turn the spool a few times to make sure the film is secure and aligned with the start mark. The start mark on the backing paper must be aligned with the start mark on the spool clip. Then close the back up. Wind the film until the frame counter reads 1. Let's talk about focusing. Look through the viewfinder and adjust the focusing ring until you see your subject sharp. Now, depending on your camera and what focusing screen you've got, this could be a very different experience than what I'm about to show you. I have the micro prism color installed. If my subject looks fractured or shimmery, it's slightly out of focus. So I adjust it until the image looks clear. Okay, so far so good. Now you probably think, how can I make sure that my subject is really in focus? I can't really tell on this tiny glass. So here's the trick. Just pop up the magnifier glass with the button here. Next, let's attach a lens. The Mamiya 645 uses a bayonet mount. While pressing the lens release button, hold the lens barrel and twist the lens counterclockwise until it stops. Lift the lens out of the camera body. Line up the red dots on the lens with the camera body. Twist it clockwise until it clicks and it locks into place. That's simple. Now give yourself a pat on the shoulder. You've now unlocked the lens changing achievement.
Hey, it's Chris from the future here. While I'm editing, I'm noticing that a lot of the wind noise makes the audio mostly unusable.
Demonstrate how to remove the top level viewfinder.
So I have to do a voiceover here. So for the parts that you don't hear my voice clearly, you're gonna see my face here and I'm doing the voiceover. Yeah, sorry for that. I've just ordered now a wind muff for my lavalier mic and next time it's gonna be a better audio. So enjoy!
Now let's get to understand the shutter speed dial. To set the shutter speed to your choice, turn the shutter speed dial in either direction while pushing the safety lock located in the middle of the dial.
Now let's have a look at the color coding that are marked on the shutter speed dial. Green numbers represent full seconds. All other numbers represent a denominator of a fraction. For example, 30 indicates 1/30th of a second. The orange number warns you that the shutter speed is too slow for a hand holding your camera. And last but not least, the red B is bulb exposure. The shutter will remain open as long as the shutter release button is pushed in. The red 60 marks the fastest shutter speed you can use when shooting with an electronic flash.
It ensures proper flash synchronization.
The red O mark. Use this setting when the prism viewfinder is attached to the camera. And in the manual it says if the shutter speed dial is set to O but the prism viewfinder is not attached, the shutter will stay open when you press it. This will drain your battery in a few hours. So here's the fix. Turn the dial to bulb or 1/1000th of a second to close the shutter and save your battery.
Now let's move on how to set your aperture.
On the Mamiya 645, the aperture dial is on the lens, like on the modern Fujifilm X cameras. To set the aperture, you can rotate the aperture ring to align with the red dot on the lens. You can also preview the depth of field with the depth of field preview lever. Also make sure the lever on the other side says A for auto. This is the AM lever.
When it's on M, your lens stops down to your set aperture. Okay, are you still with me? So, you've checked the batteries, you loaded your film, you set your aperture and you set your shutter speed. Now how you release the shutter. Okay, so on the 1000S there are two shutter buttons. One is located right next to the battery check button and one is on the front of the camera. This shutter button is also equipped with a shutter release socket and around the shutter release is also the shutter lock. So I would always recommend to lock your shutter after you take the shot. Be careful to not accidentally press the shutter button. It happened to me many times and more than I'd like to admit. And then just take your shot. See, not so bad. And now for the fun part, taking pictures. Right, let's turn it here. All right. So now I'm just gonna meter for the scene and gonna meter with the analog app. It's the second shot. Oh, and I probably gonna set to 125 per second. It says f7.1. Go to the nearest aperture. So it's gonna be a little bit overexposed, but with film it's better to overexpose than to underexpose. Then unlock the shutter button here, check the viewfinder again, and on 1, 2, 3. Okay, rewind. Okay, and I always lock the shutter button after I hit the shot. Okay, metering the scene, and it says 1/25th of a second. At f7.1. Since I don't have this aperture, I'm just gonna use f5.6. Shoot it a little bit brighter. Then unlock the shutter release and take the shot. All right. 3 shots out of 15. Okay, it's meter for the scene, f8 at 1/25th of a second. So let's choose f8. Let's see, closer to the ground. So, takes just more time to do it. Shutter release. With the Mamiya 645 in your hands, you're ready to shoot. But to get the most out of this camera, there are a few tips you should know. For portraits, the shallow depth of field you can achieve with the medium format is absolutely stunning. The background just melts away, putting all of your focus to your subject. Try using 80mm or longer lens, wide open, and you see what I mean. It's perfect for capturing emotion and detail. For landscapes, the 645 negative size really shines. It captures incredible detail and dynamic range, making it ideal for dramatic skies, textured fields, or cityscapes. Use a tripod for maximum sharpness, especially in low light. If you're shooting handheld, remember, the camera is heavier than your average 35mm camera. Use your left hand to cradle the lens and keep your elbows tucked in for stability. And don't rush. Medium format photography is about slowing down and being intentional. Here's one of my favorite things about the Mamiya 645, the waist level viewfinder. It slows me down and let me think more about what's in the frame and what's my composition. It gives your photos a unique perspective since it's usually lower down. Now while this camera is amazing, it does come with a learning curve. Let's talk about some common challenges and how to overcome them. So first off, it's the weight. The Mamiya 645 isn't exactly pocket-sized and after a while can feel really heavy. My tip, use a neck strap or even better a shoulder strap for longer shoots. And if you're in the studio, a tripod is your best friend. Then as I mentioned, the camera is trigger happy. It easily sets the shutter off, so always make sure to lock your shutter after you're done with taking your shot. Film loading can be tricky too, especially if you're in a rush. Always double check that the film leader is securely on the take-up spool before closing the back. And if something feels off, don't force it. Take a breath, rewind and try again. And trust me, if you have seen my yard studio video, you know what I'm talking about. And lastly, if you're used to 36 frames, the 15 shots you get from the 120 film is a shock at first, mainly because you really have to be intentional with every frame you take.
Medium format has a learning curve. Every mistake you make teaches you something new. And if you're coming from 35mm and used to an SLR style camera, it takes a moment to adjust to the camera. Medium format forces you to slow down, think about your composition, and every shot is even more intentional. There's no spraying and praying here. Every frame matters. When you hold your developed 645 negative in your hand and see the detail and depth and the character of the image, it's unlike anything else. I remember the first time I've developed 120 film and saw the huge size of negatives. It's incredibly rewarding to examine those negatives, and the best part is you don't have to squint to see what's in the frame. So that's the Mamiya 645-1000S. I really hope this little guide helps you to get started with this camera. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever shot medium format before? Or are you thinking about starting? What excites you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you want to support me, I've got a Buy Me a Coffee page where you find behind the scenes stuff, presets I use with my digital image. And if you found this guide helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And I see you next time.